Hi guys, this is Dan. Welcome back to my channel. Last time I talked about my Notion reading tracker setup. If you haven't watched that video yet, you should know Notion is such a powerful tool to track your reading to keep a record of it. By the way, after filming that video, I have actually found out some ways to improve my database. Let's say if you remember in the serial tracker, I was asking is there a way to count how many finished books I have on the database, and I did find out a formula for it, so now that number can be calculated automatically. There are some more details to certain dashboard, and I actually add some more graphics to it, making it more look lovely, I would say. So the setup of my Notion or my reading dashboard is getting slightly better, I would say. In Notion, you can set up database like monthly tracker, serial tracker, and physical TBR, which honestly can help you to organize your reading much better and help you to smash your reading goal more easily. So today, I think it is the time to use my database on Notion to reflect my reading in 2024. Have I smashed my reading goals? How was my reading? Any book stands out? Or maybe, what is the worst book? Etc, etc. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to my channel Fantasy so you will see how well my reading gonna be in 2025. You can also share your reading year of 2024 in the comment below. How was your reading? Did you smash your reading goals, or how many books you were able to finish? You can share all your thoughts in the comment. So I think firstly we can go back to my Notion and to visit my monthly tracker. I keep a record for both 2025 and 2024 here. On the left hand side, you can see the month and then all the books I plan to read in that particular month. You can treat the books here as my TBR, meaning that of course I will be able to finish it, or maybe I can DNF them, or even I may not be able to finish them at all. And then next to it, of course, is the author. Scrolling to the right hand side, you can see actually how many books I was able to finish in that month and the number of DNF as well. I also have data like total page count and average rating of that month too. I think what we need to do now is to scroll down to the bottom of this database. And then you can see I was able to finish a total of 56 books in 2024. In case you forgot, but I have mentioned it many times already, I want to read 4 books in a month, meaning that by the end of the year, I will be able to finish 48 books. From here, I can proudly say that I have smashed this goal real good. I mean real good, it is like 8 books extra. Once again, I know that many booktubers out there will read much more than me. I mean significantly more. Some people may aim for 100 books, some may go for like 200, 300 or more. But I think the point here is, or at least what I have learned, is that everyone is just different. What I usually read is fantasy, and for some reasons, I always choose epic fantasy series to read. They are all bloody long, some may be even over 1,000 pages, so it really takes time for me to finish them. Then of course I need to work for this channel. Let's say I plan what I need to film, I film it of course and then edit it all by myself. So this part too takes time too. I also have other routines in the day. Let's say I need to do housework, I want to chill out in the evening and I would just like watch some rubbish TV. I did try to squeeze reading into these times. Let's say I would listen to audiobook while I was doing housework, or maybe try to read while the football is on. I guess what I want to say here is that I don't want to confine myself just to reading itself. It would be quite boring just focusing on one particular thing, one particular hobby in your life, and I can get burnt out quite easily. So I think 4 books in a month is a reasonable number, a number that I am comfortable to achieve every month. And then looking back to my Notion, I can actually do something like this. Click more options and calculate the average. So you can see here the average number of books I can finish in a month is around 4.67. That is also the reason why I didn't raise the goal in 2025. I stick with like 4 books in a month. How I would see it is like if I can manage to finish one more book in a month, let's say the 5th book, it will be a bonus, but not something that I need to pressure myself to do. From this number, 4.67, of course you can tell that in some months I did manage to read more than 4 books. And here I would say audiobook did help. Listening to audiobook is like the alternative to reading, especially when the circumstances is not great for reading. Let's say when you are doing housework, there's no point you can hold a book and then do the housework at the same time. So at this moment, listening to audiobook did help. But when I listen to audiobooks, I always choose YA rather than like an epic fantasy book. There is just like so much information you need to retain in an epic fantasy. So it will be better for me to listening to something that is easy to follow, something that is entertaining, if you know what I mean. From here, if you scroll up a little bit, you can already see June is the best reading month and I was able to finish 7 books, which is quite surprising to me. But if I look at it more closely, one of them is actually an audiobook that I have been listening for over 2 months, so I don't think that book really counts as like a book I finished in that particular month. And then if you look closer, I have 2 shorter books. The first one is a novella, The Exile by Ryan Cahill, and I also got God Killer by Hannah Kena, which is also a shorter fantasy book. Even though in June I can finish over 3,000 pages, but I think we need to take this information with a pinch of salt. The data here is a bit biased. If we have a month that I read the most, of course we're gonna have the list. It is December 2024, which was last month. I was on holiday for more or less 2 weeks and I barely touched a book, so I ended up only finishing 3 books. Quite surprisingly, July is also my worst reading month, which share the same number of books finished. Yes, I was on holiday for a couple of days in July, but I think this month is quite different from December because I have a DNF. And the book I DNF is Lord of the Empty Isles by Jules Albers. This one is actually from the Gospel GSFF in June, and this is also the only DNF I have with this subscription. It is a sci-fi and I was like, finally Gospel is picking up a sci-fi for the monthly pick. I was so looking forward to it because it would be quite different for my reading taste. To very quickly summarize this book, it is like a revenge story of Remy to Adrian. But for some reasons, Remy was bonded with Adrian and then he would discover the true nature of his nemesis. The reason why I DNF this one is because this is on the slower side. I couldn't quite connect with the characters and I think the magic system didn't explain well. At last, this one became the only DNF I have on this list. And then in 2024, you can tell I can finish a total of 30,415 pages. So roughly in a month, I can read around 2,500 pages. Earlier, I asked on Google how many pages a fantasy book usually have. The answer is, with a standard, usually have 200 to 300 words on a page. Then my go-to is an epic fantasy novel with an average of about 197,000 words. So, simple calculation, a fantasy book usually have 600 pages. If my average monthly page count is around 2,500, a fantasy book usually have 600 pages. So I can finish at least 4 books in a month. So my reading goal to finish 4 books in a month makes sense to me. It is supported by this data. And if we move on to look at my master database, you can see at least I can read 100 pages a day. So I would say my reading goal makes sense and it is reasonable. I can still, of course, try to push myself to read more, but I don't necessarily feel like I am always under pressure because reading should be fun. Reading should be your hobby, but not confining to it. The last thing we can look at on this monthly tracker is my average rating. So my annual average rating is 3.56 stars out of 5 stars, of course. To be very honest, I have completely no idea about whether this number is good or not. So let me know in the comment what's your average annual rating gonna be like. In my mind, I was so glad that it is not a low 3 because it would mean that most of the books I have read would be around 3 stars or maybe below it. 3-star rating to me feels like it is not a bad book, but it is not great. It doesn't have anything stand out, if you know what I mean. At first, I hope that this number would be closer to 4. I know that it is so hard to give out 5 stars because to me, it is so sacred. That book has to be perfect and one of a kind, basically. Honestly, I feel like most of the time I pick up some really good titles, so I ended up give out quite a lot of 4 stars. That is the reason why I thought this average rating gonna be closer to 4. But I would take 3.56 as like a middle ground, meaning that most of the books I have finished in 2024 is nice, basically. Doesn't really tell you anything, this rating, to be fair. Right. Then I think we can move on to my master database and then go to the 2024 view. If I try to do this, set like a filter in rating, type of value, 5-star only please. You can see actually in 2024, I gave 6 books 5 stars. So out of 56 books, only 6 of them got 5 stars. And very coincidentally, I always find it difficult to say this word, coincidentally, 5 of them is actually Asian-inspired fantasy. We have He Who Drowned the World by Shirley Parker Chan, the last book of the Radiant King duology. I have the whole trilogy of the Poppy War series, and then the last one is J Legacy, the last book of the Green Bone saga. Looking back now, I am quite happy with how I gave them 5 stars. They make sense to me and I still feel like I am emotionally connected to them. The only one I would say I am kind of in doubt with is He Who Drowned the World by Shirley Parker Chan because I sort of forgot why I liked it. The last one I have, which is not an Asian-inspired fantasy, is Of War and Ruin, the 4th novel of the Bound and the Broken series by Ryan Cahill. It was dense, but it was such an emotional journey. I love all the storylines in this book and the character development. I honestly can't wait for the 5th novel, which is Of Empire and Dust, which is gonna be released in March. It would definitely be on my March or April TBR. And then if we change the rating to only 1 star, there is none. I didn't give any books 1 star in 2024. Out of all the books that I have read, none of them feel like that bad, to be honest. But if we set the rating to only 2 star, we have again 6 books here. The first one I have is Fatebound by Sarah L. Aravi, the first book of the series. I didn't enjoy the world building and I think the plot itself is a bit predictable. Even though the sequel is out now, I didn't plan to read it. The second one is The Blood of Outcasts by D.A. Smith. It is also the first book of a series. I just couldn't get into the mind of our main character in a revenge-driven story. The next one I have is also the first book of a series and we all know what it is. 5 Broken Blades by Mike Collin. I just couldn't get the instant romance and the writing is a bit average. After it, we have The Palace of Eros by Carol de Robertis. I guess this kind of Greek myth retelling is not really my genre. I just find the writing is quite lyrical, but there are not enough emotions to support the verse. And then we have Long Live Evil by Sarah Rees Brennan. There were just too many modern references in a conventional fantasy world. There was like a quote of like, "Look What You Made Me Do" by Taylor Swift. Oh, the old Taylor can't come to the phone right now. Why? Cause she's dead. This book is bad, but I still remember what happened. This is really bad. I also find the main character just a bit stupid, a bit dumb, keep repeating the same mistakes, basically. The last one on this list is quite different from the others because this one is a proper romance, The Breakup Pact by Lord. I didn't enjoy the setup of this romance. It is a second chance story, and I just couldn't click with this pair of lovers. I feel like it just happened so quickly. After looking at the best book and worst books of 2024, we can have a look at my genre spread. Firstly, I have set a filter for it already. Very obviously, I read a lot of fantasy, and then my favorite subgenre is, of course, epic fantasy. Followed by epic fantasy, we have Asian and historical, which share the same number. Honestly, they are my go-to, and I think they are always just so nice to read. I can also make videos about the historical references if I can. But I guess I may have already picked up the well-known popular Asian historical fantasy already in 2024, so in 2025, these two subgenres may have a slight decline in terms of the number here. Surprisingly, next to it is romantasy, which is why? I guess part of the reason is because I started to listen to the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas after I complete the first book of the Crescent City series. Then there are some romantasy books that are from subscription. Let's say Gospel. We have got the 5 Broken Blades. What I want to say about the rest is looking at the right hand side, you can see there are other fantasy subgenres. Like I said in my 2025 reading plan, I do want to expand my reading taste, not just limiting myself to epic fantasy series. So I do want to venture out and explore other fantasy subgenres. Mystery, of course I love a good old mystery story, but I just couldn't find the right one that is set in the fantasy world other than the Tin Cup. Maybe thriller, maybe even horror. Because in this chart you can see the number of them is actually quite low here. But looking back in 2024, all the mystery fantasy I have read, they are actually quite good. I feel very engaged in the story. I did try to solve these problems, solve these cases in my mind. They are just so refreshing from all those epic fantasy series. At last, I guess we can move on to talk about my serial tracker in this progress check field. I wouldn't go into the details here because I have done a video about my series check last year in December, so it is just a very brief recap here. So starting from the left hand side, it is the series that I haven't started it yet. Majority of them are actually from my physical TBR, waiting one day I will pick them up. But I will read the first book from the Bleeding Empire in January this month, so if I have finished this month, it will move to the caught up session. And the Echo Saga is my 2025 reading club series. If you guys are interested in this series, we can read it together. I may make some spoiler videos about my feeling, my review of this series after I complete every book. I actually have an exciting idea in my mind. I would do a reading vlog documenting me reading the first book to the 9th book, but of course I will read them monthly, not finishing them in one go. That video hopefully will be out by the end of the year. Exciting, right? And the Bloodstone Saga is the one that if I have completed every series I want to catch up with, this series is definitely on top of the list. The rest, hopefully one day I'll pick them soon. Next to it, we can see the series that I am working on. Wheel of Time, hopefully I can finish it by the end of the year. Memory, Sorrow and Thorn, I am so close to finishing the second book. Mistborn Era 2 is the one I need to complete before starting Wind and Truth. Throne of Glass is the one I have been listening while I was doing washing up. Crescent City, not sure. They're just too bulky, they're just too big to start with. I may do another read along with the second book and upload it on Valentine's Day, if you remember that project last year. There are 8 series that I am up to date with. Other than the Water Songs trilogy and War Art series, actually the rest of them got a sequel coming out in 2025, which is such an exciting news. And I can even complete the library series by Mark Lawrence in March, which is another great news. In 2024, I have completed 9 series in total, which is quite a surprise to me. If you don't know me, I am the kind of reader that I would like to complete a fantasy series first, rather than reading so many at the same time, if you know what I mean. Honestly, I just can't keep up with everything happening in every series. So completing a series first before starting a new one will work better for my brain and give myself a better reading experience. At last is my DNF, and there are 5 series in total. To be honest, I am not surprised to see them here. These are the books I didn't quite enjoy and gave them 2 stars, if you remember, from the master database. The one you may not expect to see here, maybe it is the Rag of Rata? I'm not too sure how you pronounce it, sorry about it. And the first book of this series is The Sons of Darkness, and the author is Gaurav Mahanti. It is an Indian myth-inspired fantasy, but I just find the first book is on the slower side. There was a huge cast of characters, but I just find some of them were in the background quite forgettable. I did finish this book, but in the end, I just completely lost my interest of it. So I didn't plan to read this series, even though the sequel is out now. So here is my reading statistics of 2024. It is just so fun to do so because it gives me a time to reflect my reading in 2024 and see is there anything I can improve on. So if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to my channel Fantasy so you won't miss anything from me. I'll see you all real soon. Goodbye.